In 1939, Lina Medina of Peru have become the youngest character to offer start while she had a child named Gerardo at simply the age of 5. In the early spring of 1939, mother and father in a far-flung Peruvian village observed that their 5-year vintage daughter had an enlarged belly. Fearful that the swelling became a tumor, Tiborello Medina and Victoria Locia took their little lady from the own circle of relatives s domestic in Ticrapo to peer a physician in Lima. To the mother and father surprise, the physician located that their daughter, Lina Medina, became 7 months pregnant. And on May 14, 1939, Medina gave start through C phase to a wholesome child boy. At 5 years, 7 months, and 21 days of age, she have become the youngest mom with inside the world. Medina S case took pediatricians via way of means of wonder and attracted worldwide interest that she and her own circle of relatives by no means wanted. To this day, Medina has by no means informed government who the daddy became, and he or she and her own circle of relatives nonetheless shun exposure and keep away from any possibility for a tell-all interview. Despite the thriller that keeps to surround the case of the world s youngest mom, extra perception has come to mild on how Lina Medina were given pregnant, and who the daddy may also had been. Born on September 23, 1933, in one of the poorest villages in Peru, Lina Medina became certainly considered one among 9 children. Her being pregnant at such an early age manifestly got here as an annoying surprise to her cherished ones, and the public. But to pediatric endocrinologists, the concept that a 5-year vintage toddler should get pregnant wasn totally unthinkable. It believed that Medina had an extraordinary genetic situation known as precocious puberty, which reasons a toddler frame to alternate into that of an person too soon, earlier than age 8 for women and earlier than age 9 for boys. Boys with this situation will regularly enjoy a deepening voice, enlarged genitals, and facial hair. Girls with this situation will commonly have their first duration and expand breasts early on. It influences approximately 1 in each 10,000 children. Roughly 10 instances extra women than boys expand this way. Oftentimes, the reason of precocious puberty can be identified. However, latest research have located that younger women who have been sexually abused may match via puberty quicker than their peers. So there are suspicions that precocious puberty is probably increased via way of means of sexual touch at an early age. In the case of Lina Medina, Dr. Edmundo Escamil mentioned to a scientific magazine that she had her first duration while she became best 8 months vintage. However, different courses claimed that she became 3 years vintage while she started out menstruating. Either way, it became an incredibly early start. Further exam of 5-year vintage Medina confirmed that she had already advanced breasts, wider than everyday hips, and advanced, that is, post-pubescent, bone growth. But of course, despite the fact that her frame became growing early, she became nonetheless very honestly a younger toddler. Who was the father of Lina Medina s baby? Precocious puberty in part explains how Lina Medina were given pregnant. But of course, it doesn't provide an explanation for everything. After all, any individual else needed to get her pregnant. And sadly, given the 100,000 to 1 odds towards it, that character probable wasn ta touch boy with the identical situation that she had. Medina by no means informed her medical doctors or the government who the daddy became or the situations of the attack that brought about her being pregnant. But because of her younger age, she won't have even recognized herself. Dr. Escamil stated that she couldn't provide specific responses, while wondered approximately the daddy. Tiborello, Medina s father who labored as a neighborhood silversmith, became in short arrested for the suspected rape of his toddler. However, he became launched and the costs towards him have been dropped while no proof or witness statements will be located to keep him responsible. For his part, Tiborello strenuously denied ever raping his daughter. In the years following the start, a few information corporations speculated that Medina may also had been attacked throughout unspecified festivities that passed off close to her village. However, this became by no means proven. Once Lina Medina(s) being pregnant have become commonly recognized, it garnered interest from all around the world. Newspapers in Peru unsuccessfully presented the Medina-owned circle of relatives lots of greenbacks for the rights to interview and to movie Lina. Meanwhile, newspapers inside the United States had a subject day reporting at the story, and in addition they tried to interview the youngest mom inside the world. Offers have been even made to pay the own circle of relatives to return back to the United States. But Medina and her own circle of relatives declined to talk publicly. It became possibly inevitable, given the amazing nature of Medina(s) situation and her aversion to scrutiny, that a few observers could accuse her own circle of relatives of hoaxing the entire story. In the over 80 years which have exceeded, this appears not likely to be the case. Neither Medina nor her own circle of relatives have attempted to capitalize at the story, and scientific statistics from the time offer adequate documentation of her situation throughout her being pregnant. Only snapshots have been recognized to be taken of Medina whilst she became pregnant. And best certainly considered one among those, a low decision profile picture, became ever posted outdoor of the scientific literature. Her case report additionally carries severe money owed via way of means of medical doctors who handled her, in addition to honestly described X-rays of her stomach that display the bones of a growing fetus internal her frame. Blood paintings additionally showed her being pregnant. And all papers posted inside the literature exceeded peer evaluation without a hitch. That stated, each request for an interview has been refused via way of means of Medina. And she could pass directly to keep away from exposure for the relaxation of her life, refusing to take a seat down for interviews with worldwide twine offerings and neighborhood newspapers alike. What happened to Lina Medina? Lina Medina appears to are becoming suitable scientific care, specifically for the time and area wherein she lived, and he or she gave start to a wholesome child boy. Delivery became via way of means of cesarean phase because, regardless of Medina(s) upfront widened hips, she probable could they had a hard time passing a full-sized toddler via the start canal. Lina Medina's child was named Gerald after the doctor who first saw Medina, and the baby returned home to the family village of Taikrapo after being discharged. In her second year of life, Columbia University's parenting specialist Paul Kosk was granted permission to visit the Medici family. Kosk said that the youngest person to give birth is beyond normal intelligence, and their baby is completely normal. She considers her child to be her younger brother, and so does the rest of her family, Kosk reported. An obstetrician named Jose Sandoval, who wrote a book about the Medina case, said that Medina often preferred to play with dolls over children. Harold Medina herself grew up thinking of Medina as her sister. He knew the truth when he was about 10 years old. Unfortunately, Harold Medina was almost healthy for the rest of her life, but he died in 1979 at the age of 40 at a relatively young age. His cause of death was a bone disease. It is unknown if Lina Medina is still alive today. After her shocking pregnancy, she lived a quiet life in Peru. In her younger adulthood, she found her job as an obstetrician secretary. And it funded her way through school. Around the same time, Lina managed to take Gerald to school. She later married a man named Raul Harad in the early 1970s and gave birth to her second son in her mid-30s. As of 2002, Medina and Gerard are still married and live in the slums of Lima. Lina Medina's life is probably left private, given her lifelong attitude towards the eyes of the world and the prying eyes of curious outsiders. The youngest place of birth in history. It's the best. If she was still alive, she would be in her late 80s today.